Hi, I'm Clyde Kilough, and this is Verse by Verse, a short podcast all about exploring the insights and lessons of the inspired Word of God. Today we're looking at probably the most quoted and recognizable verse in the entire Bible, John 3:16. For God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son, that whoever believes in Him should not perish, but have everlasting life. As I was preparing this podcast, I saw in my news feed a notification that someone convicted of several truly heinous crimes many years ago is scheduled to be put to death, to be executed today. And it prompted some thoughts that I hope will give you something to ponder for the rest of your life. Imagine for a moment this scenario. A hardened criminal, guilty of despicable acts of violence toward innocent people, is now facing justice, the penalty of his own death by execution. This has been all over the news, and now you are watching reporters on television interviewing this killer's family members who are pleading with the authorities to spare his life, citing his horrible childhood and mental state and other factors that led to his wickedness. You are so moved by this that you do something drastic. You pick up your little child, your first and only child, drive to the prison, and in an appearance before the warden, tell him, I fully understand and support that justice has to be served, and justice demands the death penalty. But I want this man to have a chance to be redeemed, to turn his life around, and I am willing to offer my child, my only child, to die in his place today. Now, I asked you to imagine that scenario, and yet I can't. I cannot imagine that ever happening, and cannot imagine anyone even capable of having the depth of compassion or love that it would take to even consider giving their child so someone else could live, even a loved one, much less a criminal. You know, there's so much to unravel in the entirety of John 3:16 that we could do dozens of podcasts on it. But it demands that we first try to consider something that is virtually incomprehensible, and that is the depth of love that God our Father has for all humanity. You and I can talk about love on the human level, and we stretch our minds to contemplate how far humans can go to express their love. But however far that is, we fall so far short of God's capacity that there's no comparison. The Apostle Paul put it this way in Romans 5, verses 6 through 8. For when we were still without strength, in due time Christ died for the ungodly. For scarcely for a righteous man will one die, yet perhaps for a good man someone would even dare to die. But God demonstrates His own love toward us in that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. Now let's return to imagining our scenario, except in this one, you are the criminal. You know your deeds. You know you deserve justice, death. And then you find out that someone has offered to let their child die in your place. You cannot comprehend how someone can have that type of love to do that for you, but it's true. You now have a chance to live, to change your life and your ways, to make something different, better of your life. Now, that is a scenario that we can and should imagine because, as Paul wrote, that is us. But God demonstrates His own love toward us in that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. I don't have that type of love inherently in me, nor do you. In fact, when I really stop and ponder that, it's hard to comprehend God having that depth of love after all that we sinners have done against Him. But comprehend it we must. The more we stand in awe of God's love for us, the more we will begin to stand in consciousness of how we should respond to Him. The love of God is just the tip of the iceberg in carefully weighing what John 3:16 is telling us, but it's a good place to start.
Verse by Verse is a companion podcast to the Daily Bible Verse blog. which you can find on the Life, Hope, and Truth Learning Center. Check out the show notes for more.